What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Weisz.
Dr. Jeremy Weisz here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. Laurel Rundle of AHA Marketing. She's been in the industry for decades. And before I formally introduce Laurel, I always like to point out other episodes people should check out. And Laurel and I know each other from the 10K Small Business program, which is kind of like an executive MBA collaboration of Goldman Sachs meets Babson College. And a shout out to Bram of Letco, who I had on the podcast. So check that episode out. Really great CPG brand. Alip Shah, who both of us know, check him out on the podcast. He talked about his company, 108 Agency. And I know him and Laurel collaborate on a bunch of things as well. And this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their dream 100 relationships. How do we do that? We help them run the podcast. We're an easy button for companies to launch and run their podcast. And Laurel, for me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. And I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I found no better way to do that than to profile the people and companies I admire over the past decade on my podcast and share it with everyone else. So if you've thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, go to rise25.com or email us support@rise25.com. I am excited about this episode because we're going to talk about consumer behavior and so much more. Laurel Rundle is the founder of AHA Marketing, and they're a leading provider of targeted product sampling, delivering millions of samples to consumers each year through thousands of locations. They drive trials and awareness for top consumer products and natural brands. And over the past 20 years, they've worked with companies such as Gerber, Brita, Dove, Gillette, Famous Amos, you name it, so many of the ones we've heard. And they provide access to health, wellness, fitness, nutrition, education, pet, lifestyle, putting your brand at the center of human interactions that are already happening. So every brand campaign is delivered through one of their proprietary networks. And we're going to walk through these things. And Laurel, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
So I talked about it a little bit, but just for people who don't know AHA Marketing, talk a little bit about what you do.
Sure. And, you just said that you value relationships. And when I think about our business, it's really leveraging relationships that are already occurring through natural points of intersection. So whether you're having a baby and working with your childbirth educator, or going to the doctor, or working out in the gym with your trainer, we essentially insert brands into these occasions. So our clients are the brands. They come to us. Their key objective is to drive trial and awareness of their brand. And we then provide them with access to these places, these businesses, through our networks that we've developed over the years.
Are there any strange products, Laurel? I see okay, and we're going to walk through some examples. But are there any strange products that stick out? You have Famous Amos, which cookies, great. That's great. And I'm a sucker for a sample. I'll take the sample and I will buy the stuff after if I like it, right? I'll buy it. So, but are there any strange ones that have approached you? Like, do you have a market for this type of product, or are they all kind of just different degrees of CPG products?
Yeah, they're all different, and I think that's why I love what we do, because it could be talking about deodorants and teenagers or razors, and then incontinence or kitty litter. So we work across brands, across categories, across target audiences, and I think that's what makes it interesting. But when you say weird, this was so long ago, but we've done a lot with kitty litter over the years. And early in my career, we had a litter product that wanted to do a sniff test. So we were sending out vials. It was just a bad idea to begin with. Even when you think about the efficiencies of shipping and the waste and everything involved. So that was probably like the weirdest thing I've ever done.
You sent out, what were you sending out? You said vials.
We sent out these little vials of kitty litter, and one was with their litter and one was without. And it was a smell test. And I mean, that's important, right? To have a litter where your home doesn't smell, but I just don't think this is the right way to go about it. So we try to, we really try to work with the brands and kind of coach them. We're not a branding agency, but we'll get involved a little bit to the extent of what's going to resonate with that person that's going to be distributing it. So we really like to think about what are the needs of the business. So if we're talking about a sampling program that might go through medical offices, well, their primary goal is to enhance their patient experience. So where can you come at it where it's not all about the brand, but it's more about the category, the need state, the value, even the value to the office. Maybe it's, streamlining visits where you can kind of address key points that relate to that category. So we try to help in that sense. We also try to help with the different elements. So aside from a sample and that promotional experience, what else might be helpful? Do you want to do a little media display, or is it important to do collateral or a QR code to drive to purchase? But the goal really is to get, in our world, is really to get that efficient trial. So getting as many samples as possible into the hands of consumers as efficiently as possible.
I want to talk about the different venues that you place people or place the products in, but you said something before we hit record about that kind of struck me, which is you said, how many brand impressions would it take for someone to try something? I think about if I maybe saw 4 ads online, then I maybe went to the website, and then maybe a friend told me about it, and I still haven't tried it at that point. I don't know. So what have you found? What is the actual brand impressions that it takes? I don't know if it takes 10 or 15 times, and then compare that to what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, it's just even in our daily lives, if you're looking for, what restaurant are you going to go to tonight? You might search online, but a friend says, I went to this great place. Well, you're probably going to go there. So the same, with a brand, it's getting that recommendation. So we have that context because we work with people that are natural influencers in these consumer lives. But also it's just, if you have a brand that is a taste proposition, is, efficacy, if let's say it's a skincare product, you need to try it. And, especially in some of these more competitive categories where that's really critical, there's nothing like getting it into the mouths, the hands of consumers. So, obviously you want everything in your marketing mix, but this piece of it for a lot of brands, you can't live without it. And I think, during the pandemic, some brands had to live without it and they suffered. So we're really busy right now. Brands are really, they need to get their product into the hands of consumers more than ever.
I want to talk about how do you work with, because there's 2 things here. You're working with the influencers, you're also working with the brands, and then obviously there's the end consumer. But walk me through a little bit about the Expecting Moms program and how that works.
Yeah, we reach expecting and new moms a couple of ways. We can go through more traditional OB/GYN practices. A network that we really love are childbirth educators, so doulas and midwives. And we have a network across the United States and Canada, and we will present brands to them that they would then share with their clients, essentially. So this is an important network because if it's something that they're not going to recommend, we're not even going to go there. They're obviously more in the natural space. So we have a process of working with them. We have, a team of miracle workers that sometimes I don't know how they do it, but they are out there working with, the businesses on a B2B level, talking about the specific opportunities for samples, what we're asking them to do, which is usually to present as a free gift during natural, intersections in their business. And they would agree to accept it. And then we ship the products to them. So that is essentially the process. And it sounds a lot easier than it is. We work with a lot of agencies, we work with brands directly, and sometimes agencies try this on their own and they're like, help.
There's a lot of logistics.
There's a lot of logistics, but also it's just, I think it's how to position the brand and how to reach busy people that run businesses and get them to accept these types of programs. You kind of have to come at it in the right way.
So from the Expecting Mom, let's talk about the influencer for a second. So, and that it may be a doula, maybe a OBGYN. I mean, these people are obviously going to these appointments already. The best purchase I've made in my life, one of them is the doula. Our daughter was born in my minivan. And the doula actually delivered the baby in the minivan in front of the hospital. So thank God she was actually in the car with us as we were going to the hospital, because if I had to deliver that, I mean, I obviously don't know what I'm doing in that respect. So, so we have the influencer side, and I want to break this down a little bit. So you will approach them, and like if there's an influencer right now, they're listening, okay? Because I have several introductions for you based on in the natural health in this. There's ultrasound clinics, there's doulas, there's OBGYNs. How does that conversation work? What are they asking you?
They are asking us, really we'll ask about the brand, and we usually are proactive, obviously, in providing details. So a brand that we've worked with in this particular space is Lolita Baby Care Products. They're an amazing natural brand. So this is a brand that is typically known, but if not, they'll do some research. So they might have some questions around that and the products that they might be sharing with their patients or clients. And then just other key things around the logistics and timing. In this particular network, they have, obviously they're meeting with the moms. It's a more intimate relationship. So the way I look at it, this versus like an OB-GYN, you can get a lot more scale. It's probably a bit more efficient from a cost standpoint, but the engagement and that interaction is so strong, as you know. I mean, you trusted this person to deliver your child in a minivan. So whatever this person is going to recommend is probably a brand that they are going to at least put in their top consideration set.
I mean, you have some requirements too, I imagine. Do you say, you have to present it in this bag, or what do you want them doing on their end? Let's say they go, great, Laurel, this sounds great. The product looks good. What do you want me to do?
Yeah, I mean, we expect them to deliver it. We ask them to provide feedback. We often ask for photos from different activations. And we usually get a pretty strong response because they've already agreed and they know us. So we really we ask them to deliver it and tell us about it.
Is there a minimum
love to get that feedback?
Is there a minimum of samples that you like? We need you to do 100 or 1,000. I mean, I don't know. How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it really varies. And the way I answer that, I mean, we're always happy to help out, smaller emerging brands, and they may not have a large budget like the Procter and Gamble's of the world. So we'll do whatever we can. I think to get any sort of read on how something went, 100 locations, and then depends on really what we're sampling and how many we might deliver through each location. And we've done things smaller than that. It just depends. And then we've done obviously things in the thousands and thousands of locations that result in millions of samples.
Talk about the feedback loop in a second. So you have these great brands, and I know you mentioned the baby care brand, and I'd love for you to mention there were a few others that you were talking about in this space, but they come in, they get it, and then the feedback loop. How does it work for the brand to get feedback? Is there tracking, or you said there's pictures? What does the feedback look like?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things that we do as far as feedback, as data points. I mean, the first thing is really how many samples are we giving out? How many potential impressions of that product and their message are we giving out? How many consumers are we reaching? How many influencers are we reaching? So, for example, we recently worked with Core Power, which is a Fairlife or Coke brand. And it was a product to reach consumers, active consumers in fitness studios. But the key for them is to really go through the trainers. So this was kind of a tiered promotion where we go through our contacts. We expect them to work with their trainers, and it was kind of shared out in more of like a kit format. And then the feedback comes back from the actual contacts that we work with, which would be more on the influencer professional side. And then we get consumer feedback that really has to be attached to that sample or experience. So, these days now that QR codes are back and we have more familiarity and ease of use, we recommend that if a brand can include that on the sample somehow around the packaging of the sample, that will help, actually drive responses. Otherwise, we rely on our locations, our venues to share those links out to get surveys. And then we compile everything. We often do like fun photo contests, which sounds silly, but they're real. And we'll give out a couple $100, maybe first, second, third prizes. And we get, this is actually it's very fun to see the photos that come back. I'm thinking of a Dove campaign we did recently. And there were people that had like bubble machines and were in bubble baths, holding the soap. And it was just, we get some fun things back. They kind of get into it. So that really helps drive feedback. We want to make them happy and build some excitement around it, but we're really trying to get as much of a response back as possible. And there are other things like if there's an offer tied to this, we can look at the metrics behind that. So redemption rates, I don't think, that's definitely like a key way to analyze the success, because people use coupons and offers at a different rate. College students probably aren't going to go that route, but if they try a product and they like it, they're probably going to buy it. And then all of these surveys have kind of the basic metrics that you would imagine, things about, were you aware of this product? Do you intend to purchase? On the influencer side, would you recommend this? So things of that nature. Sometimes getting into the attributes if a brand wants to know, like, what did you like best about this product?
Laura, you're a true expert here. So let's say someone comes a blank slate. They're like, we want you to help add value. We're designing the packaging of the trial. We want you to help us map out what this will look like. Because I'm sure people come to you like, here it is, like it's already done. But you mentioned a few really key things here. Is one, you could have an offer, and is that offer on the packaging? And what have you found to be a good offer? You said there could be a QR code, which also could relate to an offer. And then you have incentivizing them to take an action with, whether it's a photo or something like that. And you have a contest, which works. So from the offer perspective, what has worked as far as offer goes, or what should people be thinking about for an offer?
Yeah, that really goes back to the brand. Looking at the other tactics that they've done and where they've seen success, we think that this does require a rich offer. So maybe something that they just couldn't go online to get. But it really, if I give examples, it doesn't really matter because it would really vary. It's not like a certain percentage or dollar off. It's all related to, what's the price point of that? Where is it available? The nature of the audience, the target audience. So that really varies. Mm-hmm. But where I thought you were going with that question, which is also really important, if we can work with a brand on the ground level, I think just the efficiencies around how a sample is designed is really important, and how a sample, which we don't really get into the manufacturing of samples, it's just more about the efficiency in packing, the forms of the sample. Is it in a tube or a paquette? It's obviously going to cost a brand more for a tube. You might get a little bit more out of it, but is it really worth the cost? Probably not. The efficiencies around a skincare product in a paquette is 10 times of what a tube might be. Even packing. So we really, in kind of the behind the scenes of our business, we look at, how efficiently can we pack and design this? Can we reuse some existing materials? What are we purchasing when it gets into fulfillment? That's obviously labor. So anytime that the brand can do some of that work for us and we can save them money, everyone's better off.
And so from that, are they shipping the products to you, or do they typically work and ship it directly to all these people?
They ship the products to us, so we make it really easy. It goes to one central warehouse. We work with several, but depending on where the activation is happening. And we do everything from there. They provide us with the samples. We do all the kitting or fulfillment of the samples. We print all the extra materials that might be required. We fulfill them into the packages and we ship them.
That's insane, Laurel.
I know. I know.
You say it so
it's
calmly. You're getting tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of these samples.
Yes. And we work with really great partners. So, we're not the ones that are actually picking it, but we work with several partners that are excellent at this. And Some are better in one area than others. So it depends on, again, what we're packing. We actually lately have gotten into some situations where brands just need to move out pallets. This is kind of new for us, but that's something where we may go direct or we may store the pallets for them. And we might work with some of our larger locations like schools and hospitals or even YMCAs that can take this in. So we can usually provide a solution for a brand.
You're like a 3PL company too. Didn't realize.
Yeah.
So from the influencer part, I got that in the Expecting Mom program. So let's talk about from the brand perspective. You mentioned the baby care and talk about a few other, brands that would be applicable to that and how, what they were looking to do.
In the baby area?
Yeah.
Yeah. So some other brands that we work with in this space is Traditional Medicinals for their mother's milk tea. Enviroscent is a really great natural air care product. There really hasn't been anything in the marketplace like this or mainstream. So that's a really great product, and they've worked with us, or we've worked with them for several years. A client that we worked with last year was the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. This is the beef checkoff and no samples. And our goal was to educate pediatricians and moms on the importance of beef as a first food. So this was new for them. It was a very non-traditional approach to really engage with, the key people that really influence young families and what they're going to feed their children. And so this was all education, white papers for the physicians, information for the practices, displays that would go in waiting area, information for moms that they could take home. So it was a great campaign, and we worked nationally with them. And then we also worked more or less on the individual state level. So states could opt into this program and choose the number of offices they wanted to partner with to distribute their materials. And we handled all the design, the copy in that. We wrote everything, printed everything, fulfilled everything, provided research.
Wow. So it was focused more on medical professionals?
Yes.
And then there's Bob's Red Mill. What did you do with them?
Yeah, so Bob's Red Mill has been a client for several years. And the last campaign that we did for them was more specific to a need state. And this was their granola targeted towards celiac patients. So we actually worked with gastro practices, which we've worked with in the past, but with Activia yogurt and several other brands. And it was really to introduce their product as a gluten-free snack, breakfast, alternative, but solution. Yeah. And they're just such a, wonderful company to work with. They've just got, fantastic brands. So this was also a really nice sample. You're getting a nice, one serving size of granola in 4 different flavors. So we worked with our network of gastros. We provided them with samples, and we also did some education in the waiting area and these little booklets for moms that had an offer.
Do the practitioners love this because they get to give free samples to their patients?
Yeah, they do, but they don't act like it. So physicians' offices are a little trickier. And, some of them do have no sample policies. And I think, I've been doing this for a long time, but over the years, it's more and more difficult to actually get to them and work with them. We do it. It's not easy, but we make it happen.
Yeah. I'm surprised. I would think, it's like a value add for a patient. If the person checks out the company and they believe in it, then they give them like a bunch of samples that they can leave with that they can consume. So I would think it'd be a win-win situation. So I'm a little bit surprised to think it's just hard to get to them because there's so many gatekeepers.
It's there. So in a lot of our locations, we can email with them very easily. They opt into our networks. They know us. Doctor's offices, we don't have that ease of communication. So it ends up being a lot of phone calls. Sometimes we'll do direct mail to reach them. So it's just a bit of a different process going into it. But in the end, we don't get a lot of no's, once we do actually get to that key contact. And they do embrace these programs. And they tell other peers, we get signups all the time. We can tell when we're doing a campaign because we'll start to get a lot of signups from offices that, heard about it and they want to be included in future programs.
I'd love to hear, I don't know if this is applicable to Bob's Red Mill, kind of on those things of offers, QR, incentives. Do they do anything like that for this program?
They actually did a coupon. So this was a printed piece that was in the physician's office.
And then you have a food truck network.
We do. Yeah. This has been a really great network for us. So we've worked with Famous Amos, delivering their little cookie samples through our food truck operators across the country. We recently did a campaign for Brownie Brittle in similar locations. And then we are also now working with Primal Kitchen. And Primal Kitchen, as you know, they have a lot of really great products, but they also have condiments. So this is a little bit of a different twist. It's more about, product placement, having them actually, share their products with their consumers and providing that as an option versus their traditional ketchups, mayonnaise.
For the world of driving awareness through trial, what other things should companies think about?
Driving awareness through trial. I think it's, of course, the actual trial of it, whether it's if it's the taste proposition and getting it into their mouths, that is really the most critical thing. I think there's also something there as far as how a consumer is going to receive this and take action, is just the relevancy of when they're getting it. So what I like about what we do is just there's context. So, you're in the right place, you're getting it from somebody, the right person. It's not somebody, we complement experiential, but we're not that. We're not hiring people to go out. It's people that they already know and trust within their world. And then the relevancy as far as just that environment that they're receiving in. So I think all these things really aid in driving effective trial. Things just even with the packaging. So having that product recognition. And next time you go to the store and you're like, oh gosh, I tried that granola. It was awesome. You are going to go find Bob's Red Mill on the shelf and try it.
How did you even get into this, Laurel? We don't wake up when we're
that's a longer
we're in
story.
high school and I'm like, I want to drive millions of samples into consumers' hands.
Yeah, I didn't know what it was when I had an opportunity to interview this really cool little company called Sampling Corporation of America that was started in Steve Kaplan's basement a long time ago, and he had just been acquired. I had some retail experience. I was in the consumer products world, and I had worked across, retail and trade marketing and a bunch of different areas. So I actually came into that company and I ran the beauty care division of Procter & Gamble because they were a big client. So it just kind of escalated from there. This little company was bought and bought and bought over the years, and we ended up being part of a big agency. And a little over 10 years ago, I left to start AHA Marketing and just really focus on this more life stage marketing. I really just love the idea of, I think just the whole consumer behavior aspect of this and how effective it is. It's just really compelling to me. I think it's a fun business. I love the types of brands and products we get to work with. We're usually working with a launch or a brand that has some sort of new news. So there's some excitement around that. So that's also fun too. So I can't believe I'm still doing it, to be honest, but I love it. It's a lot of fun.
Well, it changes, you get to work with so many brands, so it keeps it fresh, even though it's maybe similar concepts and things that you programs, but it, changes with the product. I love to hear for an agency owner listening, some of the things that, some of the takeaways, some big decisions, key decisions that you've made throughout the life of your agency. What sticks out as some really critical decisions or hires that you've made in your agency?
That's for other business owners out there that can relate, it's a whole journey. I started actually with a original business partner, and it was a great experience. And I think in the beginning, it was the shiny new toy, and we were so excited about this that we started a couple other companies. And it was a fun experience, but we knew that we had to really keep focused on our core service and what we were offering. So we kind of had a few waves of that in the beginning. And then I really started to focus more on operations and really building value that way, and just building a more, efficient, well-run company with better processes. And that's really helped us grow. And then last year, actually, while I was in the Goldman Sachs program, I had the opportunity to acquire another company in my space, which I did. And I think it was because of that program that I was more open to this, because I knew what it could potentially lead to. And that was just a really great decision. It sounds daunting, but when you dive into it, it's really not. And it solved a lot of things for me. It helped us grow a little bit quicker than I could have grown on my own. Helped us get kind of back into some larger accounts or other accounts. They just happen to complement the ones that we already work with. So that was expansion there. So just being open to those opportunities, but not jumping on everything so quickly, and having a really good team.
I want to talk about operations SOPs, and I also want to talk about acquisition for a second. When you look back, what advice would you have for someone else of that acquisition process? How did that go for you? And if someone's thinking, you know what, Laurel, it does seem daunting. I'm not sure if I should do an acquisition. There's a company I'm talking to. How would you recommend navigating? How did it work for you as far as navigating that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the numbers tell the story. So, we really focused in on that. And frankly, from my perspective, it was a no-brainer. It just felt like I couldn't lose in this situation, and it was structured in that way. There was a bit of an earnout in this. So I kind of looked at it logically. I brought in several experts that are, kind of people that I know and trust that do this kind of work to look at our business. And it was actually looking back, it was fun. I learned so much, even though it was a small acquisition, our closing documents were still 100 pages. You still go through every single aspect of it. So yeah, I think just being open and just really doing your homework on the due diligence and bringing in, people that can help you through that if you haven't done it before.
Laura, I have one last question before we end. And I want to ask you about some of the software and tools that you like to use. You mentioned operations and SOPs and everything like that. But before we go into that, I want to point people towards ahamarketing.com and check out more about your company and what you're doing. Are there any other places online we should point people towards besides AHA Marketing?
Nope, I think that's it. Cool. Yeah.
What are some of your favorite software tools, ways that you're able to run the company, run operations efficiently?
We have a lot of different subscriptions that help us run the business day to day. Obviously, things like Slack and SurveyMonkey and MailChimp, but the actual running of our business, that was a challenge that we faced a couple of years ago. We looked at a lot of different CRM tools, and I'm not talking about growing on, from an agency brand perspective. I'm talking about like our, the back end of our organization, our venue database. So we actually had a custom Salesforce application built that is specifically for the venues or networks that we work with. So we can look at, medical offices and really get down into the types of practice or focus or specialty. So as we go into new programs or looking at networks for brands or even building new networks, we can put them into our database. We still start from fresh for every campaign that we do, because there's always changes, but this is really given us a bit more structure in our business. And if a brand is launching and they want to really heavy up in the Northeast, we can look, how many locations do we have, within the Northeast that we know that we can get to quickly, that we have relationships with, how many do we have to build? So it really offered some functionality in our business that we didn't have before.
if someone, Laurel, thank you. If there's a influencer out there,
Mhm.
should they just go to ahamarketing.com and contact you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there is a place on our website that influencers can actually sign up. When we do these campaigns, we also have other brands. So for example, if we're working with a doula, midwife, lactation expert, we have a For Your Moms network. So they can go to foryourmoms.net and they'll get to that page to sign up. We have For Your Pets, for your members, you name it. So if they know us, they sometimes come in that way, but otherwise everything can be routed through AHA Marketing, or they can even just email info@AHA Marketing and we'll put them in the right place.
Yeah. So influencers, they can go to your website. Also for brands who are like, I want to distribute my products or trials or information, same place. Just go to ahamarketing.com.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome.
And click contact us.
Right. Laurel, I want to be the first one to thank you. Thanks, everyone. And we'll see you next
Thanks for
time.
having me. Thank you.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.